Hello everybody, welcome again to another lutys chainsaw mods. Today I'm doing a bit of a review. I don't do many reviews really, done a couple. I want to do a review on this Parker chainsaw. I've had it a long time, this saw. They're real cheap. My fascination with these Chinese started a long while ago. I mean, the first saw I ever had was still MS 017 chainsaw, a little one, and I used that for a few years, and it was the only saw I had. But I've never used to cut a great deal of wood, and it was good for what I was doing. They're a good chainsaw. But then when I moved down to this cottage, I've been here now 20 years. So I've been chainsawing now for probably 25 years. So I've had quite a few experiences with bad saws, different issues and what have you. That's another reason why I started my channel, Lutys Chainsaw Mods. Anyway, the 017 that I'd had, I just moved here, and there was a very big tree in my garden, probably had about 3 to 3.5 foot trunk. It was a Cypress Lalandi, and anyway, I did do it with that saw, but coming towards the end, so I dropped the tree. It was good for that, don't get me wrong, because they're quite light, those little 017s. I dropped the tree and I'm starting to chunk it up in the garden, and the saw's playing up badly, and in the end it wouldn't restart. So the tree was down at that point. I've moved the pieces out of the way, so I had some time now where I could sort of either repair it or get another chainsaw or something, So I had a look, and it turned out that basically it was worn out. It had so much use, it was worn out. So I ordered a new cylinder for it, and a piston and rings and what have you. And whilst I was waiting for them to come, I'm looking to buy another chainsaw. And I ended up buying what's this is modified now, but I ended up buying this. This is a 58cc Timber Pro. This is one of my soup top saws, this is now. They're actually known as a Zenoa clone chainsaw. So they're built on the same design as a Husqvarna. They're styled on I should say they're styled because they're not the same really. Some of the Husqvarna 372 parts will fit, but they aren't really, other than the fact that they're styled like it, they're not the same chainsaw, to be honest with you. They do look a bit like one, but they're not. But anyway, they're a Zenoa clone. Now you can get different Zenoa clones. Okay, so the Timber Pro one, this one, you can tell it's a Timber Pro because they have yellow caps. Okay, they're the only ones that I know of that have yellow caps. Okay, and then you've also got this one here, which has got a problem actually, this one has at the moment. This is that fast saw. I've not long built it actually, but if you look, you can see the carburetor moving. So the whole carburetor's come loose, so it just wants, I've got to strip it down and have a look at it. But this is basically the same as that Timber Pro, but this one was just a spurious saw. Okay, it's just a spurious chainsaw. I think it was sold under the name of Charles Jackal's, but essentially it's exactly the same as the Timber Pro that I've just shown you, but it's cheap, and this is one that would have been well under £100. I think you can buy things like this now. I've seen them around. If you go on I think it's, not sure what they are, but all I do is Google it, 58cc chainsaw, and you'll see there's different ones. They come from China, they're made in China usually. Some are built in different countries, some are built in the UK, but a lot of them are built in China, and then they're transported over and they're sold over here. Now, the plastic isn't great on them, on the real cheap ones. It's difficult to explain unless you own a cheaper one and you own a better quality one like a Parker or a Timber Pro. But the plastic isn't great, it can crack quite easily. But the build quality is rubbish. You know, you get loose components. Now on them, the oil pump, and on these, the oil pump works on a plastic worm spinning round off the crank, or off the clutch actually, and there's a little gear on the oil pump that goes against that plastic worm, and that's how the oil pump gets drive. But there is a slight amount of adjustment, so if you're careful in building them, with the screws, the mounting screws of the oil pump loose, if you push the oil pump towards the worm a little bit and then pinch the screws down, you'll get a better fit with the teeth against the worm. Now some of those Zenoas are thrown together basically, I think, and I don't think they bother to sort of line things up properly, so then you get problems. You know, it stops oiling, it wears the worm out, and people start throwing them about thinking, oh, you know, they're rubbish, and they kind of are if you buy one and you're not prepared to fiddle with them, mess with them, because they're a cheap chainsaw, and if you can get them right, they are good. There's all sorts of issues you can get with them like that, but generally they are, I mean, they're sold, the ones I buy, the 58cc ones, you can get different ones. You can get, I think, 56cc and 45cc, and they're now producing a 62cc, which I hear are not great. So by the sound of it, these 58cc's are probably the best, to be fair, because the weight of them is really low. You know, they're a lot lighter than all of my steel chainsaws that I've got. But the power is 3.1 horsepower, and I've dyno tested this one actually, this Parker, and that did come out of that. But you know, just over 3 horsepower really on a chainsaw, when you think the 017 still comes out at 1.5 horsepower. Now yes, it's got a short bar on it. I use 14-inch ones on mine, but they come with a 12-inch bar on them, and they're, to be fair, you can take a tree down with them, like I said, you know. So 3.1 horsepower in standard form. If you just want it as just a backup chainsaw, that's what I bought this Parker for, then they're really good, you know. So the point I'm trying to make is, I bought the Timber Pro to replace the 017, and I think I started thinking about issues with saws, because at that time, because we were at this cottage, we rely on wood, and I cut tons and tons of the stuff every year, and you need to have backup saws, more than one, to be fair. I mean, I go out, there's a team of, well, 3 of us that do the cutting, but sometimes it's 5 of us that go out, and it's all my equipment that they use. I mean, I've got 8 saws now, I have. And you still get breakdowns, you know, you always get issues, and that's why we always put 5, maybe, well, 4 at least, 4 or 5 chainsaws, and you need backup saws. Like that one, the carburetor come loose. Okay, it's a minor-ish fault. I've got to stop it happening again, which is more of a challenge. But just tightening it up, you could tighten it up and run that saw, and that'd be that. And it's a modified saw, you know. You're going to get things like that, especially when you go into modifying things. But I like doing that and figuring out how to get around it and making them better. So yeah, I bought that one. So this one here, this Parker, I've tried working out. We've been here 20 years, and I think I've owned it for at least 15, somewhere between 15 and 17 years. I think I've owned this saw for. And now I did start accumulating other saws in the meantime. So this Parker never really got used. I think I used it a bit for the first year when I owned it, just to sort of see what it was like and what have you. Never had an issue with this saw. Never ever have I had an issue. But I always take this chainsaw with me, and it replaces a broken down saw, whatever saw it might be a Stihl, it might be a Chinese, I don't know, whatever. And this always runs, always does the job for us, always gets us out of trouble. It's a fantastic little saw. Now I know I say I don't really use it a lot, but it comes out with us all the time, and generally it does get used a little bit, and that's over a 15 to 17 year period. So it's all completely standard. I've done no modifications to this saw, and I wanted it like that because it is so reliable. It's powerful enough as it is. You know, if anyone's thinking of buying a cheap chainsaw just for use at home now and again, a bit of logging or whatever, or like me, you know, I do a lot of logging, a heck of a lot. These are flipping, they're great. They really are great. Now, I'd just say, I did have an issue with this last time I came, kind of, okay? Bearing in mind, it did run, it did do the job for us, but it was starting to bog a little bit as I was finishing, okay? And then the chain jammed, okay? Now I first thought, because there's a lot of bramble where we were, and I thought it just got jammed up in the clutch with bramble. But I've just had a look at it this morning, and what had happened is that the nose wheel in here had got tight. Now it's kind of not the chainsaw's fault, it's because it's a backup saw. It's used a tiny bit sometimes, put up on the shelf, and then I'll bring it out next time. I may use it, may not use it. It doesn't tend to get maintained like the other chainsaws. You know, the other ones, like, you have breakdown issues, different things, and because they're used more often, they get maintained better. This one doesn't. So what I've done with it, I worked out the issue, that it was the nose wheel that just got tight. I could move it with a screwdriver, but it was difficult. And you know, I freed it, greased it all, put it all back together. It is oiling still. The oil is still working, because that's one thing I thought about. I wonder if the oil is failing. And I've flipped the bar over the other way now to use it the other way for a little bit. But that's like it's almost a non-issue really. It was my own fault because I hadn't maintained it. Now as for it bogging down, again I thought to myself, oh, something's happening to it now, you know, 17 years old or whatever. Something's happening to this saw. Well, all it was I just tuned the carb, just retuned it, and over time with a 2-stroke you find that anyway, because they run in it's a Nicosil coated aluminium bore, but the wear rate is quite high really on those kind of bores. You know, ideally you need a cast iron one or a high quantity carbon steel bore or something like that, but you're adding weight then to your saw, you see. But these are just aluminium, so they will wear, so you're going to lose a little bit of suction and compression, etc. in the saw. It will change, so it will need tuning every so often. Now that, as far as I can remember, I think I have tuned it once more during those 17 years. It was only the second time, I think, that I can remember anyway, that I've tuned this up. It was just a little tweak on both jets. Perfect. So my experience, these are great, you know, they really are. And to be honest with you, I think I'm quite a heavy user of saws, maybe not as much as a professional tree surgeon, you know, they'll be running more often than me, but we use these a lot, and different people run my equipment, which is not always great, because obviously you always treat your own equipment with a bit of kindness really, but you know, it's like I say, it starts, it runs, it cuts every time we want to use it, and that bogging out issue and the chain going tight on this wheel, it's the first issues I've ever had for 17 years. Never had any issues with it. Nothing's come loose on it. The oil has always worked. You know, what can you say about it? I think I paid at the time, because it was a while ago now, I'm sure it was either 80 odd pounds or 90 something pounds, but I think these are about 115, 116 pound now. I think you can get them a little bit cheaper if you shop around, but you know, not a lot. Loads of places sell these. Yeah, so I think they're great. I just think they're flipping great saws. Just really do. They've got what they call, so they've got an easy start system on this, and part of that is you've got a bulb on here, which a lot of equipment have them now, which you just pump about five or six times. But one thing which I hated, because it does add weight, but I now like, is this easy start pull start system. And what it does, if you look at it, it does stick out quite a bit. Because if you think these are just a standard pull start, but then look at the size of that one compared to that one. Okay, they're bigger. They're a lot bigger. And they're like that because basically they've got a spring inside, a big spring. And when you pull, you don't pull direct. You pull and you wind up a spring. Okay. So then when you come to the end of your pull, it gives an extra couple of turns on the motor, because this wound up spring carries on turning the motor for you. So yeah, they're a little bit heavier because of that, but yeah, I think they're good, you know, because it does start easily, and also, one thing with my tuned up saws, because they're a lot of them are high compression, there's a hell of a pull on them, you know. They really they really pull on your arm, like. This one doesn't. It just feels soft as you're pulling it. So I like that now. Like I said, I didn't, but I do. I quite like that now. I mean, when you look in these, the top cover and everything is obviously different. It's different to these, you know. But it's basically just the shape. That's all it is. It's, you know, it kind of doesn't make any difference really, because it's got the same air cleaner in it as any other Zenoa clone chainsaw. They're still exactly the same, to be fair. So this top section is a different shape, and this lid is a different shape. Obviously the pull start is a bit of a different shape, but other than that, inside it is the same. It's the same motor, same 58cc motor, the same carburetor, unless you replace the carburetor. I use Husqvarna 372 carbs on my souped up saws, but you know, they're perfectly adequate for what they do. And you can tune these, but I found out over the years, after messing about with these Chinese ones, the crankshafts are pressed together. Now, yeah, they're 3.1 horse, but if you're getting up to the ranges of, if you're close to 5 horse or over 5 horsepower, what happens, the crankshaft slips. It slips on the big end pin, because the big end pin is just pressed in. And when you're biting into something hard, some wood or whatever, trying to slow the saw down at full bore, what it does, it twists on the pin, and then it'll just stop. It'll stop, it'll backfire, it'll suck air, because then what it does, the crankshaft is out of line, so it starts to stir the crankshaft seals. I found that out, well, I don't know, it could have been about 6 months ago, because I tuned this one. This one's got a standard crankshaft in it still. It's ported, and it's got a big carb on it and all the rest of it. And this produces 4.9 horsepower, and it's never slipped on the big end pin. But this one, which comes out, it came out now, last time I dyno tested it, it comes out at 8 horsepower. It's got a ram stack on it, big carburetor, 372 carburetor. It's ported heavily, light and piston, and turbo crankshaft. And on the front, it's got a short expansion chamber. And this produces 8 horsepower. And I remember when I was building this, when I just finished building this, I dyno tested it, and I was pushing 6 horsepower on it, and after one run it slipped on the pin. Now I didn't know at that point, but it just wouldn't restart and what have you, you know, but it had slipped on the pin, on the big end pin. Eventually, after doing multiple-ish things with it, eventually I did find this problem. I ended up having to split the cases and what have you. And if I move you a bit, any better? Yeah, I had to split the cases, and I measured, checked the crankshaft. I made a bit of a setup where I could spin it and see whether or not it was twisted, and it was. You could see it was. There was almost 2mm of movement in the crank. So once I'd found it, I welded it all, ground it all back, welded the pin in, and this one has produced 8 horsepower constantly on my dyno without any issues, and it's been fine. But obviously now, like I said to you before, my carburetor's come loose. So carburetor's all, it's coming loose on me, and I haven't stripped it as yet. I just took the lid off and had a look at it. So yeah, so this other one is running at 5.9 horsepower, 4.9 horsepower, sorry, and it hasn't slipped as yet. So obviously in standard form at 3.1 horsepower, they're not gonna give a problem at all, I don't think. Yeah, so just going back to this Timber Pro, exactly the same chainsaw inside, but different casings and what have you. Totally, completely standard, very reliable saw, I think. Powerful enough for the job. Great saw. So if you are thinking of buying one, I did tell somebody I know was after a chainsaw, and I said, Timber Pro, get one of them. And I've always bought the 58cc Chinese Sonoma chainsaws anyway. I always think they're pretty good. So yeah, so that one, the back one, I'm going to have a look, get that carburetor off, see what's up with it, and hopefully it'll be a quick fix. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I've got to just show you what we were doing last time, or what we've done, if you can see that. We've got a few sheds worth of wood out there. So got a bit to process yet as well. So thank you for watching Lutys Chainsaw Mods. Bye for now.